hands. Now, I know some people are saying, well, yeah, it'd be great for the doctor. Who doesn't like touching breastises, right? Well, for the most part, many doctors at Planned Parenthood are female. They're not male. I'm sure for most of them, feeling up another woman is not the height of excitement for them. Maybe if they're a lesbian doctor, that's a possibility. But for most doctors, female doctors who happen to be straight, that doesn't, the idea of touching a female anatomy other than their own is not very exciting to them. But we all know that is not an early detection system. Because usually if you have if you're able to feel a lump, you're a good ways down the cancer road. I mean, you're not too far gone where you can't be, saved by modern medicine, but it reduces your chances of long-term survival because by the time the lump gets big enough for you to feel it, it has to be a certain size, which means it's had time to grow and possibly spread. Where mammograms tend to be able to catch things that you can't feel much sooner. But Planned Parenthood doesn't have that. And in fact, not a single location that we can find of Planned Parenthood has the ability to do mammograms. Now, what some will do, not all, what some Planned Parenthood, local Planned Parenthood clinics may do from time to time, it's not like they always have them, but from time to time, they'll bring in these what they call mobile mammogram units. Now, you see these mobile medical units at some hospitals. And basically what it is either in a big RV, recreational vehicle, like a big Winnebago or something that's been outfitted for this stuff, or it's in a tractor trailer, and it's in the trailer part. And you've probably seen this at hospitals. I know here in New England, they have this MRI imaging system on a tractor trailer. And the reason why it's on the tractor trailer because these MRI imaging systems are rather expensive. And so by having another tractor trailer, more than one hospital can share it. So, for 1 week of the month, it might be at Hospital A, and 1 week a month, it might be at Hospital B, and 1 week a month, it might be at Hospital C, and so on. And all the hospitals contribute to the purchasing and maintenance of this thing, thus significantly reducing the cost because these things are expensive. Well, it's the same thing that, there are other mobile medical programs like mammograms, and the reason for that is because, again, it lowers the cost for this stuff because some of this machinery and testing equipment and so forth is rather expensive. And in order to keep costs down, thus keeping medical costs down, they will often share these devices. Well, the only way to be able to share this type of equipment is if you put it on a mobile platform such as an RV or a tractor trailer. Now, on occasion, not on a regular basis, from what I could find, they will plan some Planned Parenthood clinics will be able to contract to have a mobile mammogram station, if you will, be able to come for a few days or a week. Well, that's not really geared towards women's health and cancer screenings. Oh, hey, what? I'll tell you what, ladies, we got this mobile mammogram facility in an RV that comes around, but it comes around once every quarter, once every 3 months. So if you can wait, for 3 months, we can give you a mammogram here at Planned Parenthood. But not even here at Planned Parenthood. It's going to be out in the parking lot. But that's the extent of, and as far as all these other cancer screenings, they don't do it. They're not equipped to do it. Plain and simple. So this whole notion that you have Obama back in 2012, and you have Obama saying it again, and some liberals and politicians and politicos saying it again today, is not only disingenuous, it's just a flat-out lie because they know, because they were told back then that Planned Parenthood doesn't do all the stuff that they say that Planned Parenthood does. But you have the low information people out there that think, oh my goodness, the evil Republicans and conservatives, they just want to cut out women's health care and they don't want women to get, this type of screening and that type of screening. But they're not getting it at Planned Parenthood to begin with. Plain and simple. And another thing is that, they're saying, well, this is going to reduce. I find this absolutely hilarious. That one of the reasons that Obama says this might be illegal for states to be able to have control of and spend their own money is because it would reduce the choice of women to where to go to get their health care. I'm sorry. But isn't that what the Obamacare law did in the first place, is reduce everybody's choice? So it's okay if the federal government reduces our choice. But if your state decides that they're not going to pay for certain things to reduce your choice, oh, well, now the big bad government and Barack Obama is going to swoop in, like a vampire and say, oh, no, you can't do that. Because the federal government is like a big sucking vampire. We're sucking all the money out of your blood. I mean, this is just absolutely insane. For the government to run around and tell you when they institute a law that reduces every single person's ability to choose choose what they do with their health care, and then to swoop in and tell states, well, no, you can't do that because now you're going to reduce. I mean, that's hypocritical. I don't know what that's a perfect definition of hypocrisy right there, folks. It really is. You can't get more hypocritical than that. So this whole notion that states, and I think the states should just thumb their nose at Obama and give him the middle finger and say, screw you, it's our money. All these unfunded mandates. Now, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that there were some Supreme Court cases on this and that it was found to be constitutional somehow, some way. I could be mistaken. Maybe they weren't U.S. Supreme Court decisions. Maybe they were lower court decisions that never made it to the Supreme Court. But I do believe that there was court cases because states tried to sue over certain unfunded mandate things, and the court said, well, no, the federal government can mandate the state governments to do anything. Actually, constitutionally speaking, that's not right. That's not true. And the states should be able to thumb, and they should. They should just say, screw you, we're not paying for it. We're not supporting an evil organization like Planned Parenthood. And frankly, neither should the federal government, because it has nothing to do with health care. It really doesn't. They shouldn't be funding it either. Now, well, I know that there were at times certain health insurance companies that did not do that, did not go for planned, or did not provide for Planned Parenthood, which is it's up to them. But evidently now that must be illegal. Now, I don't know if you're planning on trying to keep health insurance premiums and health care costs down, how is it that you will allow people just to go anywhere? Regardless of price or cost, whatever it is, think about this for a second, folks. If you have 5 clinics in your neighborhood, and, let's say a doctor's visit at one clinic at Clinic A is $100, but hospital visits at Clinic B is $200, and the last clinic Clinic D, it charges $500 for that same visit. Well, why would you allow people to go to that and pay for it out of the insurance companies and states' pocket? Why would you let them go to the $500 clinic when they can go to the $100 or $200 clinic? How do you keep costs under control if you let people just spend anything? Well, no, Rod, that's not the way it works. See, there's a basic amount of money that can be spent on each procedure that'll be paid for. Well, there's nothing that says that they can't say, well, okay, we're only going to cover, your insurance is only going to cover, $200 of this $500 visit. So you got to pay the other $300, right? Well, how is that? And a lot of times people don't realize what's happening until they get a bill. How many times you get, you go to the doctor or you go to the dentist or what have you, and you pay your copay, it could be $10, $15, $20, even in some cases $30 now. You pay your copay. And, you have the visit and the blah, blah, blah. And then when you're on your way out, the receptionist says, yeah, you're all set. Thank you. We'll see you in 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is that you have to go back. And about a week later, you get a bill. Now you open it up thinking, okay, it's going to show me what the insurance company's paying and show my, copay that I paid. And you realize it's a rather significant bill. You got to pay $100 or something. And you're like, wait, what? Well, it happens all the time. And it's happening even more post-Obamacare than pre-Obamacare. Because again, they're only going to pay so much. And they don't care what the real charge is because in order to keep costs down, they're only going to allow so much. So, especially if you're on Medicaid or Medicare, there's only so much that is going to be covered. One of the big things that running around now, it's been big for a while, but it's even bigger now since Obamacare, is these Medicare and Medicaid insurance gap policies. Because the gaps can be, huge. The gap between what is actually being charged at the healthcare facility, what you're being charged at the healthcare facility versus what the government, Medicare and Medicaid will actually pay. There is a gap there most of the time. Well, somebody's got to pay for that gap. Well, if you don't have that gap insurance, that gap is going to come out of your pocket. And senior citizens are finding this out the hard way because nobody's telling them up front. Now, a lot of other people are starting to find out the hard way. Not only are they, their premiums being jacked up. I just heard somebody say, well, yeah, I went from about $400 a month in premiums to $250 a week. Well, that isn't dropping your health insurance costs. You just went through the roof on that person. But we're supposed to be, but we're told that, hey, if we don't allow people to be able to go to Planned Parenthood and the state and federal government doesn't pay for it, then these people aren't going to get health care, which again is a bunch of bunk. Now, if the only reason to keep Planned Parenthood alive in its current configuration is simply and only for abortion. And they can show, all the procedures, as they call it. This is where they get you. This is where they get really tricky and nitpicky on this. All the procedures that they perform at Planned Parenthood, only about 3 to 5% are abortion. That may be true, but that's not the revenue generating percentage. You start looking at the revenue that abortions provide these clinics, this abortion factory, and you'll find out it is above 50%. And sometimes, depending on where the clinic is located, 75% or more of its operating income comes from that 3 to 5% of abortions procedures. That's not a lie, folks. That's what's actually happening. And so therefore, if you cut down on paying for, government paying for, and understand, a lot of abortions are paid for by other than the patient. Government assistance, what have you, helps to pay for this stuff. And if government stopped paying for it, well, that there goes a huge income stream for Planned Parenthood. And it would wither on the vine and die, just as it should.